Hi there, I'm James Osborne, the co-founder of the Recruitment Network, and this is the TRN Podcast. Every week, we unpack the strategies, the technologies, the processes and mindsets fueling today's top-performing recruitment agencies. We take a look behind the scenes of some great recruitment businesses, we listen to the real-life stories of those who have built those businesses, and we learn from some of the industry's greatest thought leaders to help you become both future fit and future relevant. So let's begin with this next episode of the TRM podcast.
So we're talking about this new consultancy model, which I say is one of the most exciting things I've been involved with in the recruitment sector for decades. And I think this is absolutely brilliant. And I'll show you why and explain to you why in a second. One of the things I've been talking a lot about over the course of the last few months, I suppose, is what we're seeing as the rise of the super agency. And to me, this is really, really exciting. In this type of market, you naturally tend to see recruitment organizations significantly outperform other recruitment organizations. And we call them the super agencies at the moment for obvious reasons, because they really are outperforming the rest of the market as much as anything else. A few examples of those. This is a recruitment business that I know and that we work with. They had 67 people a couple of years ago. They're down to 15 people now. So they've actually shrunk in headcount quite significantly. So you could suggest that they may have failed, but actually quite the opposite. Their cost to run their business are around about 200 grand a month. Their average weekly contract GP is about 50k a month. So their contract book is pretty much covering all of their overheads now. But they're doing about 120k average perm fees per month. So they're tracking at about a 1.4 million profit EBITDA type business, which if you go back sort of 2 years ago, they were pushing to get to 250k profit. So what a great business, what an absolute massive turnaround. And now obviously they're scaling that part of the business up as well. So that's what I refer to as a super agency. This is another recruitment company, had 18 people this time last year, now up to 29 recruiters. So they've actually grown in headcounts. Average GP recruiter though is 460k per annum. So that's average across their low performers, mid performers and high performers as well. And 35% of that GP is coming from what we're referring to as talent consultancy, something we're going to talk about in a second, and not actually from just typical recruitment placements. Again, so another example of what we're seeing as a super agency. This is a solo recruiter who's done a lot of work on their community platform. We helped them build a community platform last year to help feed their recruitment business. That's now done so well. It's now generating its own levels of revenue. In fact, they're doing 220 grand's worth of recurring revenue purely from the community platform. They're doing 170k in perm fees. This is a solo recruiter, so doing about 400k. And they've got 2 outsourced or offshore resources over in South Africa. One's a community manager managing the platform. One's a resourcer delivering on the majority of that perm fee. So again, a really nice small business doing incredibly well, reaping 250, 300 grand's worth of dividends and everything else that goes with that. So again, these are examples of super agencies. And so those of you who keep an eye on the press, you know our friends over at Metric got sold yesterday by BGF, private equity firm, and a valuation of £100 million valuation yesterday, which is great. 130 consultants. This business launched in 2019, got to 130 consultants in what's that, sort of 5-6 years. 6-7 years, 7 global offices, 2 years on the FT1000, and sold for a valuation of £100 million. Okay, so you know the recruitment industry is absolutely on fire at the moment. Don't tell me it's not, but only for certain businesses, and these are the super agencies. And that's what I want you to be focusing on: is how you become one of those super agencies. What does that look like? What are they doing differently, better than everybody else? There's a bunch of things. I picked 5. I'm going to talk about one today. They're productive, they're consultative, they're insightful, they've got a very cleverly mapped out and formulaic BD approach, and they're AI superpowered and AI augmented. So that's what these super agencies really have in common right now, as much as anything else. And we're going to talk about some of these things today. If I look at one of the most exciting shifts I think our industry has gone through for decades, is what I'm referring to as the white space. I'm actually out on site with one of the members today where we're rolling out a white space program, or actually we're actually doing a quarterly review of the white space program we rolled out a quarter ago, just before Christmas. We're actually going to be reviewing that and looking at the impact it's had to the business. I can promise you now the numbers look bloody great. So this is a thing called the white space, and if I explain what that means, typical recruitment companies on the perm side run around about 16 to 22% margins typically on contingent recruitment. If you're doing retained, that probably goes up to more like 25 to 35% margins. But if any of you are doing any form of talent advisory work, the margins for that is sitting around between 45 to 65% margins. Okay, and there's no success dependency on that as well, because you're delivering a service to your customers. And if you think about it, about 10 to 25% of your total revenue came from some form of this consultancy work, advisory work, your overall margin would shift upwards to well over 30%, back to the good old days of when I used to work in recruitment and what recruitment should be. So that's really exciting, I think. So actually, what I'm asking recruiters to do is think about not only staying deep with their niches and deep within their markets, but also go wide with the services and offering that we're actually providing to our customers. We're not just providing recruitment services anymore. We're now providing talent advisory, talent consultancy services as well. And if you can get your head into that and understand that as a concept, you will see how explosive this is and how exciting it is. And actually, you'll realize how simple it is as well. This is not complex, although it may sound it. So who is selling what at the moment? Well, you got on the left-hand side, you've got recruiters, us lot. And what are we selling? We're selling people, we're selling insight and that type of stuff. At the right-hand side of the spectrum, you've got these consultancy firms, lots of consultancy firms who are going into your customers, selling transformational change and governance programs and diagnosis, etc., and actually throwing people out at the other end of it as well. So that's what we've got. And in the middle, you've got this sort of gap between the two, which is the white space, which is the really, really exciting part of this market, where the margins are in between the consultancy firms, which are super expensive, and the recruiters who are fighting for margin. You've got this nice white space of margin, gap, opportunity that is there for the taking. And I think it's an incredibly exciting part to it. Also, what this creates for your clients is what we call a white space trap, where in essence you've got recruiters on the left-hand side who are providing, let's be honest, a fairly transactional, role-focused, reactive service to customers. So give us the jobs you've got, we'll work on them. And on the right-hand side, you've got consultancy firms who are actually very, very over-engineered and over-scoped and very expensive and quite slow and laborious. So your customers want that consultancy services, but not in the way that consultancies are offering it because of the cost and because of the time involved. And actually the stuff on the left-hand side isn't really necessarily ticking all the boxes for some of your customers, especially those who are currently not hiring at the moment. Do you just walk away from them and say, well, give me a shout when you are hiring? Or do we have something else we can offer them in the meantime? And that's why this white space trap is really a great opportunistic moment for recruiters to go in there and go and take some market share in that white space. And this is what we refer to as selling capability projects. It's really, really wonderful. I love it. I think it's brilliant. And what I'm seeing happening across the TRM community at the moment are people winning some brilliant capability projects, which are high value and really quite easy to deliver on as well. Because ultimately, what your clients are looking for is not CVs. They're not just looking for CVs anymore. They want outcomes. They want return on investment. They want insight. They want certainty. They want support for their challenges and problems. It's a different play now, other than just CVs. If you're just specking out CVs or just sending out CVs all day long, then I think you're missing the point slightly on what the opportunity actually looks like. What's driving these projects? Well, it's all the change that's happening in our industry. There's a huge amount of change happening, as you know, across the world when it comes to talent. There's still massive amounts of talent shortages everywhere, bearing in mind it's the right type of talent. Upskilling, redeployment, diversity and equity, levels of engagement in the workforce, and so on and so forth, blending AI and human strategies together, and so it goes on. So there's lots and lots of change happening for your customers, and they're going, well, I don't quite know what to do right now. I sort of need some help to figure this out and quickly. Who's going to help me? And they probably will end up either doing nothing or going to a consultancy firm and overspending when they don't need to. What I want you guys to do is go and take that market share and make that opportunity. Okay, let me show you this in real life. This is an example project. It's an organization that wanted to do a bit of a talent acquisition transformation within their business to really understand how they were going to acquire talent and engage and motivate and manage talent within their business. So included, they want to do some stuff around workforce planning, around the technology stack they had, around process redesign, and then sort of actually hiring some TA teams to actually support them with that rollout process. They went out to a consultancy firm. This is what the consultancy firm were pretty much charging. They put together a team of people, as you can see on the left-hand side. The consultancy day rate is what they were charging those people out for. You can see how long each of those people were sort of working over the course of the project, and therefore what the total investment was. So this was over £500,000 consultancy service by a consultancy firm. The question I ask is actually, could you have put that same team together on the left-hand side? And the answer is absolutely 100% yes, you could have done. So you could actually put the same people together. So actually, if you did put it together, look at the figures. If you were doing it under recruitment company column, this is what you would have been paying out to those people and their day rates. So you can see on the left-hand column what it would have cost you in total to deliver exactly the same project. Somewhere between that 159 grand's worth of costs and that £500,000 worth of fees that your consultancy firms are charging is your margin that you can go in and sell these services to. So to me, this is not complicated. It's just packaging up what all the consultancy firms are already doing and taking that to market, because you can do exactly the same thing and you can do it significantly cheaper than consultancy firms, but with a significantly higher margin than probably what you're selling recruitment for at the moment. Does that make sense? That's an example project. Now that may sound far-fetched for some of you doing £500,000 type consultancy projects and proper workforce planning projects. I'm not suggesting you have to go that far necessarily, but it's the principle I want you to understand, because when I show you the different consultancy things that you can do, you'll start to realize how easy some of this is. Okay. Another example of a project is an organization that was using multiple recruitment companies. They went to our member to say, we want to get rid of all the recruitment companies and actually reduce our total cost of hire down to zero. And we want to basically have our own internal team to be doing all of our recruitment. In essence, so we came up with this idea of this dependency to interdependency model. In other words, stop being reliant on your PSL of recruiters and instead work with us to deliver a project to your team. Now, that may feel like we're cutting our nose off to spite our face, but actually the reality is we didn't have that business in the first place. So actually, this is how we won the contract and won the bit of business off the back of it. So we put this together. I'll share you the actual project and proposal if any of you are interested. But this is basically how we help them map out how they basically weaned themselves off their current agency suppliers and basically built up their own internal talent acquisition team and their whole talent acquisition strategy and process as well. So actually the total savings over the course of an 18-month period was well over 600 grand, or just under 600 grand, I should say. And their average cost of placement was significantly reduced down from what was 6,800 down to £500. So the client was happy, they got what they were looking to get out of it. Our member picked up a massive contract to go and deliver all this, which is fantastic, from a client that didn't have. But actually the reality is they're now picking up and working with them anyway, because they're helping them do some other stuff and some other recruitment outside of the scope of this particular document. So it's a really nice way of winning business. And we see examples after examples of this all the time across the TRN community. This is one of our international members who talks about a 6-month project that they won through this process. 6 months retained, €500,000, 25% of the fee was paid upfront. How cool is that? Which is absolutely brilliant. Another member, this was a deal closed that we're working with an organization that was over in the US. He wanted to set up over in Europe. Our member was based in the UK. This is a classic capability project, 350 grand's worth of business. It's a 12-month project with 20% of the fees paid as a monthly retainer. Nice business, quality business, good margin, recurring revenue, sticky, and all that sort of good stuff. And that's the sort of stuff I'm interested in. That's the sort of stuff that you should be looking for as much as anything else. These types of things. And we have example after example of members sharing these types of things. And these are what I refer to as capability projects, as I said. I built an AI agent. If any of you want the agent, just give me a yes or a thumbs up in the chat and we'll send it across to you. And this agent, you literally type in your geography and your marketplace that you recruit in, and it will find for you capability projects that are available in the market. So these are projects that actually are there now, right now, that other people are winning that you just don't have because you're not looking for them. So if any of you want my agent, just let me know. We'll send it across to you and you can use that and just type in your own market. Say I recruit accountancy in London or tech in New York or whatever it is, and it will find for you capability projects that you can go and pitch for. Okay, nice and simple, and it just works, which is great. Now, if you look across the industry, we know that the industry is starting to fixate on this type of stuff more and more. There's a long way to go yet for a lot of recruiters, but I think we're starting to get the point of all this. We know that a massive chunk of the industry are planning on launching new revenue models this year. This is an example of one. We also know that the focus of those revenue models is around profitability, not just top line growth and revenue at the top end. So this is why we talk about these capability projects and why we talk about this consultancy offering as much as anything else, because I think it's really, really interesting and it delivers what it is that we're asking for. So ultimately, this consultancy ladder is moving back up the food chain. We spent the last 20, 30 years moving down the food chain pretty badly. Now I'll get back up again, moving away from just doing pure placements into retained partnerships, into more advisory work, and if you're doing this properly, even into transformational change, where the margins are higher, your influence in the market and your clients is better, you're stickier with your customers, and there's more predictability from a revenue point of view. I mean, that's good stuff, right? That's the stuff that we want at the moment. Now, I won't go through all this in detail, so we'll share the slides with you later on, but there's different types of sort of positioning of where you can be within the market, as we talked about. If you're level one, just doing placement, that's that reactive recruitment delivery we talk about. It's quite price pressured, margin fees 15 to 25%. Retained search moves up the food chain. You're moving more around towards focusing on outcomes, where your average fees are moving up towards like 25% plus. If you're doing more advisory stuff, you're solving hiring problems. You're not just filling roles, much better margins. And if you're going into that real embedded transformational change stuff, that's when we're starting to talk about proper embedded programs, proper RPO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you don't need to be a big organization or a big RPO to do RPO anymore. That's the really cool thing about it. Sticky recurring revenue is what we're interested in. Look at the margin comparison. This is why we call it the pinnacle moment. If you're currently doing 16% margins, how about starting to get close to doubling that, if not even tripling that in some cases, because now you can. Classic examples of agencies that are doing that. And this is an example of an agency doing 3 million quid at 18% margin, 540k profit. If we can just shift up a little bit that business into consultancy, not all of it, a small chunk of it, then they can literally add another 50% of profitability without increasing any headcount. That's the pinnacle moment. That's why we're excited by this type of stuff. And also those of you who are looking at building shareholder value in your business, such as the guys at Metric, as I say, who sold yesterday, 100 million valuation, then what does this do to your valuations? Well, actually, it shoots the valuations up much higher. This type of business is far more attractive, and you get far higher multiples on your EBITDA. And in fact, just to show you that, these are the last couple of transactions, the transactions over the last couple of years, and you can see the difference where the sort of multiples that companies are getting at the top end down towards the bottom end, basically. So, what are we going for? What are you trying to build? If you're not trying to build a value to exit, that's fine, but it still means the stuff towards the bottom is clearly more valuable and more interesting, and therefore that's probably more valuable to you. Okay, so now how do you build this out? You build a consultancy menu. You look at the consultancy menu, and what you put on your consultancy menu is sort of up to you. But the consultancy menu ultimately is what you're going to take to market. I'll show you a crude example of all this. We'll break it down into 3 different tiers, almost like a starter tier, a growth tier, and an enterprise tier. If you start with the starter tier, you can probably start selling stuff tomorrow. And if you really want to do this properly, you might want to start thinking about your strategy to do stuff around that growth tier and enterprise tier type stuff. But let's sort of map this out. This is the core basic entry level, I suppose. These are the sorts of things I'm talking about. These are types of consultancy products you can take to market. You will look at that list and go, well, hang on a minute, James, I'm already doing half of that stuff already. Yep, you are, but you're not charging for it. That's the difference. And now you can start charging for it because the consultancy firms are packaging this stuff up and charging for it and monetizing it. So these are the types of basic, simple products that you can do properly now. But you have to do it properly to be able to take it to market, package it up and take it to market. And when you do so, you can start charging it out of 5, 10, 15 grand per project for a whole talent diagnostics or a whole market map and so on and so forth. The smart recruitment companies, what they're also doing now is building platforms like the one you see on the screen there. I'm going to show it to you in more detail in a second, where rather than selling them out as projects, they're now selling them out as a recurring revenue. So you sign up and you pay £500 a month type thing to access this platform. And on the platform, we'll give you all of the diagnostic stuff, salary benchmarks that you need for your market, the market maps, and so on and so forth. So it's a nice way of creating a recurring revenue model. Just take a step back. Imagine if you had, I don't know, 50 companies spending £500 a month, sign up to a 12-month contract to access all of this data. That's quite a nice recurring revenue model for a small recruitment company. You times that by 10, 15 people within your business, that gets quite interesting. So think about how you can take this to market. So that's very basic stuff that you're seeing on the screen here as an example. Remember, you already own the data. You already have these conversations every single day with your candidates and customers. So you've already got live market data and salary intelligence and hiring trend visibility. You know what's working and what's not working around recruitment. You're just not packaging it together and taking it to market. So you have these assets that you own. You're just not bloody well using them. And you should, because if you do, you can take them to market and monetize it. Because what you're basically now starting to sell is less around recruitment and more around your selling strategy. Okay. So you're bringing together sentiment, market, benchmarking, economic data, and bring all that together to be able to go to market and give your customers strategy. How do you grow a business? How do you understand people, the people agenda within your business moving forward? Let us help you with that. And that's where recruiters should be sitting right now. You can obviously build this stuff out, as I say, using AI. So that tool I showed you, we built it using an AI platform on one of the coaching programs on Traction, completely free to access, as I said. But so it's not difficult to do this, but if you do it, then it works incredibly well. So what you're seeing now on the screen are tools, content, data insights that have been produced using AI brilliantly well, design and everything, that are now going to market. We do it ourselves at TRN. This is our TRN insights that we produce, all using an AI platform that we built. It didn't cost us any money. In fact, it actually cost us, it was about half an hour to build the bloody thing. This is the platform I use that creates that for us. This is one of our other members based overseas. This is what their platform looks like that they give their customers access to on a regular basis. And again, that's that one I showed you a second ago, one of the other members who have built this platform. It took them 45 minutes to build this using one of our AI tools. Didn't cost them a penny to build it. And they're now flogging this out to their customers. What a great reason to stay in contact with your customers as well on a regular basis. And you're talking about the data, you're talking about employer branding and market mapping and salary benchmarking and what's going on in the industry. Really exciting stuff. Just positions you very differently from other typical recruiters within the market. That's basic level stuff. If you want to get more advanced, you might start talking about workforce planning. This is the stuff where you need to be inside their boardrooms to have these conversations. But this is obviously highly lucrative. Again, you're probably charging, 4, 5, 10 grand a month to offer this service, maybe over a 6-month period when you're building out performance framework design, productivity benchmarks. Again, you're doing a lot of this stuff anyway. You're just not charging for it. And if you really want to take it to the next level, then you start building out enterprise level products on your consultancy, charging 20 grand plus a month, and so it goes on and so it goes on. So can you see where we're coming from here? I don't mind where you start and how far you take it, but I do want you to build 1, 2, 3, a dozen consultancy products that you can take to market. Smart recruiters and recruitment companies are also building up a contract team of consultants who they're actually placing out on site with their customers to deliver these projects. So they're charging a nice hefty margin on top of it, and they're placing them out on site. So we have a team of people that will place it, will help you with your whole building out your workforce planning strategy or your global mobility advisory piece or whatever it is. They're also, by the way, at the same time selling your recruitment services for you, which obviously is great. So you're now getting paid to sell to your customers even better. So this is what we refer to as the pinnacle moment. It's moving up from being that core recruiter up to providing a real strategic value to your customers. The core recruitment gives you the access. You've got the relationships, you've got the customers, you've got loyalty within your customer base and your marketplace. How are you now going to drive margin, valuation, scale revenue off the back of that? And this is the easiest way to do that right now in this market, because in a market of volatility and change, which we're in, people are asking the questions, what do I do? And that consultancy piece is booming right now. I've got a whole program on this that we're rolling out across the TRN community at the moment, and then after Easter, which is called the Pinnacle program, which shows you exactly how to do it, the workflows, the AI agents, training workshops for your recruiters as well. Because a big part of this is how do you take it to market, how do you sell it? So we're training everybody on how to do this type of stuff. So if you want to get involved with that, let us know. But ultimately, get your hands dirty in this and get on with it. Don't miss the opportunity, because the opportunity will go away. So from here today, that's what I wanted to share with you. I suppose from here, you now need to go and build your own capability project offering, just to, I suppose, help your thinking. Think about your ideal customer profile. What do they look like based on your CVI, your customer value scores? If you're not sure about what that means, look at TRM World and we'll send you the CVI platform. But how do you identify your ideal perfect customer based on these types of things? What are their biggest talent-related challenges that they're facing, and all the biggest opportunities they want to capitalize on? And off the back of that, what sorts of capability project style solutions could we package up and provide to them? I suppose that's the basic way of thinking about your journey now, from get the point, how do I actually go and build something that I can go and take to market, similar to the consultancy menu that we talked about before. Now, remember, this is not a mindset. This is a mindset shift as much as anything else. This is not about becoming consultants. You can outsource that to a bench of consultants if you want to. It's about monetizing the data and the insights that you've already got as an additional component and a bolt on to what you do around your talent solution. So just think a little bit around how you're positioning it, what you're taking to market, and then obviously how you actually get your consultants and yourselves to actually sell this type of stuff as well. We call it the Pinnacle Promise because I think you can move your average margins up now from an average of 18% to more like 30%. And I think that is really, really exciting in a market that's being squeezed a little bit at the moment, let's be honest, and we're fighting for margin and volume. Now we can drive that up, which I think is really, really great. Great. Two things to think about from now then. First thing is build. Get involved in our Pinnacle program. We'll show you how to build this. We'll hold your hand. We'll help you build the actual products using AI as well. So by the weekend, you can actually have your own consultancy product, your platforms that you can take to market. So we'll help you build it. That's the Pinnacle program. And then the Velocity program, which is basically how do you sell this stuff and take it to market. And we talk about that in Velocity with all the AI agents that are linked to the training, the AI, to the sales process, I should say as well. So you've got the tools here. We can help you with this. There's nothing you need to think about, but you need to go on this journey and you need to be ready to go on this journey as well. And the Pinnacle program and Velocity will help you do those two things in particular. Obviously, if you're not a member of TRM and you want some real hand-holding with this, come and join us, come and get involved either as a solo member, as a plus member or club member. We love to work with you in that, and the team will reach out with you. But hopefully that's been useful today. Hopefully that's given you a few things to sort of think about, and it's got your head around a little bit around how this consultancy piece actually works. I think it's really fascinating, and I think it's a hugely opportunistic time right now to go after this type of stuff. The question will become is who ultimately will end up being the super agencies in 2026. It won't be all of you on the call, but it will be some of you, and certainly it will be the majority of the TRM members, because that's what our objective is.
Hi there, I'm James Osborne, the co-founder of the Recruitment Network, and this is the TRN Podcast. Every week, we unpack the strategies, the technologies, the processes and mindsets fueling today's top performing recruitment agencies. We take a look behind the scenes of some great recruitment businesses. We listen to the real life stories of those who have built those businesses, and we learn from some of the industry's greatest thought leaders to help you become both future fit and future relevant. So let's begin with this next episode of the TRM Podcast.